Good evening, everyone. This is Ray, the singing Tallit. I'm about to get together with J.R. Myers. We're actually both Myerses. And we are going to continue the reading from Torah Portion Mishpatim today. We read the right rulings and instructions that were given by Yehovah on Sinai to the people of Israel. We saw him, what he wants. We got instructions for men treating other men. We got instructions for judges treating other judges. And most importantly, we saw the institution of a blood covenant. When that blood covenant was established, essentially it's, and we even saw the instructions concerning a man laying with a woman. And you can think of it like this way. Today we read that if a man lays with a woman who is not betrothed, and obviously that means if they have intercourse, and at that point he then has to marry that woman, and he has to treat her, if it's a slave girl, with the same dignity that he would treat the wife he may have already had, who was not a slave when they got married. And if it's just a woman who is just unbetrothed, he has to marry her. You can't fool around. You got to stick with it when you get with it. And we can see that that's kind of what happened, because when Moses took the blood that was put on those, they took a bunch of sacrifices and they split the blood of the bulls between a bunch of basin pitchers, and a whole bunch of it went onto the altar. Now, when they threw all that blood onto the altar, and then they threw all that blood onto the people, that's the formation of a blood covenant. Now, you can think of that like the kind of blood covenant that would be established when a man has sex with a woman who is a virgin. And that is the kind of blood covenant which is the breaking of the hymen, which, and you'll know, if you read more laws as we get to them, eventually you'll see that a father will keep the remnant of his daughter's blood from the marriage night to use as evidence that she was a virgin when they were married, and that evidence is used just in case the husband tries to accuse his wife of not being a virgin when they were married, which of course is a terrible thing. But Yehovah knows how people are, and he made rules to account for those kind of things. But you could think of what happened today when we read that blood covenant being like the initial act. He's like, these are the things I want from you. Everybody's like, we'll do what you want. And unfortunately, we hadn't got to there yet, but we're about to see the golden calf incident. And when that happens, you can see how the man has already been with his wife. Everything's cool, and he thinks everything's going to be great, and already immediately she is trying to treat him the way she treated her other husbands, so to speak, bringing her other husbands into it. Even though the golden calf is said to be they said, hey, we're going to make a festival to Yehovah today, and it's going to be, we're going to build him a calf. But we ain't got there yet. Point being, that's the kind of stuff we learned about today, the right rulings concerning what Yehovah wants from his people. JR, are you able to click the button and join in here? Did I lose you? I can't send it to you again. You're probably going to have to try and log in like you did before earlier today. So what me and JR are trying to do is we're trying to get a split screen up so we can actually talk to each other. And we have a dial-in set up if you'd like to dial in. Tony, Osai, if anybody would like to call in, we've got a phone number, but it is a United States phone number. It's not a 1-800 number. If anybody's interested, though, I'll see if I can get JR to actually put the information up on the screen, and you can feel free to call in, and we can actually chat about these New Testament writings. Okay, let me see if JR can. All right, I see you on there. See if you can send me that whatever request you sent earlier today. And it'd be a good time for you to step in here, Tony, because you're the one that gave me such a dressing down about the difference between the covenants before and after the golden calf incident, which is what we're reading about today, what happened just before. You know, that covenant that was supposed to be, you know, there's that Melchizedek covenant. There's that royal priesthood being established. There's the chance to become the special, peculiar treasure in the eyes of Yehovah. And unfortunately, trouble's coming, but it ain't got there yet. Today we were just learning rules and instructions on how we should be. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading from the Gospel of Matthew. And this is Matthew 5:28 through 5:32. But I say unto you, that whosoever looks on a woman to lust after her committeth adultery with her in his heart. And if your right eye offend you, pluck it out, and cast it from you. For it is profitable for you that one of your members should perish, and that not the whole body should be cast into hell. And if your right hand offend you, cut it off, and cast it from you. For it is profitable for you that if one of your members should perish, and not that your whole body, that you should cast it into hell. It has been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writ of divorcement. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her, that committeth adultery. All right. There is some question about what exactly the meaning of this is. Let's look carefully at the actual Greek text. Let's see if the word grammaton is used here as he's discussing the writing of divorcement. All right, this is Matthew 5:31. It said, whosoever shall put away his wife. Okay, putting away your wife is something that was brought about by Rabbi Hillel. Hillel is the one who said, or tried to create the practice of doing similar to what you probably heard that the Muslims do it today. I remember I heard it when I was a kid, but they say you could walk around your wife 3 times if you're Muslim and say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, and she's out. And you just throw her right out on her head. She's not in the house anymore. That's inappropriate according to the law of Moses. In the law of Moses, we find out you must give a woman a proper divorcement. I am, and I don't know specifically what Hillel was basing his reasoning on, but today what we read about was if a man marries a slave girl, then he can divorce her and give her nothing. But he also has to treat her with the same dignity he would treat any woman that he had married. So I think maybe Hillel was trying to stretch that to mean that all women that you marry are like that, but I don't think so. And I don't think Yeshua thought that either. What he's teaching his disciples here is what's called Haggadah. Haggadah is the instruction of a rabbi to his students concerning what it is that he feels is the reason why certain laws are like they are. Now, halakha is the walk. That's how you're actually supposed to behave. Haggadah is like opinions and trying to come to a better understanding of something. Let's see. Whosoever will put away his wife, that's didomai, let him give her apostasion. Okay, apostasion. A redupation, a divorce. So even though they wrote the word, apostasion does not mean a writ of divorcement. Let's see, we can get those words. Aphistema is the root word of that. That's to make someone stand off or to make them to be apart from you. The writing of divorcement, whoever translated this basically decided that apostasion means a bill of divorcement. But that's not actually what's there in the Greek words. The Hebrew word would be the book or a bill of divorcement as described in Deuteronomy 24. That's when a man has taken a wife and married her, and it comes to pass that she find favor no longer in his eyes because he has found some uncleanliness in her. then let him give her a bill of divorcement and give it to her hand and send her out of the house. So that's the instruction of Moses. Now you got to understand, if you divorce your wife, her father and her brothers are going to have a real problem with you. And her father's going to be like, you better give me that dowry. You better give me whatever I paid you to take this girl. Or you better make sure she's got what she needs, because no other man is going to marry a divorced woman in Israel. Certainly not a priest. It's literally forbidden for a priest to do it. And that means that no Pharisee is going to do it, because the Pharisees considered themselves to be the royal priesthood. And they kept all the cleanliness laws that a priest would have had to keep. So with this idea, the word in Greek for writing is grammaton, which is where we get the word grammar from. And that's nowhere in this section. Nowhere does it actually say the writ of divorcement. It just says to give her a divorcement or a separation from you. I was thinking, I didn't think there'd be any way that Yeshua would have contradicted the Torah, and he doesn't. But he does give instruction to his disciples, and this is the instruction that we have to have, which is, it's best not to divorce. That's the instruction he's giving to his disciples. You're allowed to divorce because God, or Moses, knows you have hard hearts. You're a hard-hearted man. You'll divorce her because you don't really understand what love is. Because love is not, I have a desire for her, she gets me the things I want, she makes me feel the way I want. It's none of that. That's not what love is. Love is that you are caring for someone else, even if they don't care for you, even if they don't give you what you want. Love is a covenant agreement. Love is, I'm going to do this because it's who I am, not because of who you are. It's because of who I am. All right. And we also get a little taste of looking at a woman in lust, commit adultery. Well, that's because the instructions that Yeshua are given are like next level. We've got the physical, and then you've got the spiritual. So he's like, physically speaking, yes, you can divorce. No, it's grayed out, JR. I can't invite you again. It's already, I don't know if it's going to time out or what, but it's grayed out. I don't have an option anymore to hit it. It's already been sent. See if you can connect to me like you did earlier today, because it was you that invited yourself before. See if you can do that again. Again, back to the idea of this next level teaching. He instructs you with the plain instruction of the Torah. Yes, you may divorce. It is. Oh, I didn't send you an invite this morning. I'm talking to JR here in my ear. We're trying to get this split stream. I didn't send you an invite this morning. You invited yourself, and I just agreed. I accepted the invitation you sent yourself. If you look under the writing where you probably, if you got it up on your phone, if you got the live stream up on your phone, there's probably a button under there that shows like a plus sign by a head, a little plus sign by a person's body. See if you can click that and see if that's what that invitation button is, because that's what I had to hit to invite you. Maybe that's where the invite actually ended up, is under one of those symbols. It's probably got to be a full screen on your phone of me talking. So back we're saying about the two we got two-tier teaching, right? We got Torah, which is the foundation. This is what is the minimum acceptable. This is what is permissible, what is allowed. If you do less than this, you're sinning. So he's like, that's the minimum. Here's what God wants. He wants one man and one woman. He wants you not to look on women with adultery in your heart. If you look at a woman with adultery in your heart, then you already owe her to marry her. You're going to have a whole lot of wives if you keep looking on women with adultery in your heart. You can't do it. What it is it's you're saying to yourself, oh, I can take care of that one too. Oh, I can handle the responsibility of that one too. I'm so big and bad, I can have all the wives I want because I got all the money and I got all the resources. Basically, you're just fooling yourself into thinking something that's not true. We see the idea of, we had heard earlier today, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, which, again, it says eye for eye, tooth for tooth, if any mischief happens after the judge has ruled. So if a person can't handle the ruling that a judge gave, then the judge should just be like, all right, fine. Then we'll just cut your eyeball out, or we'll chop your arm off, or whatever you did. If you maim somebody else, so I guess we'll just maim you too. Is that justice? because there's no equality in that kind of justice. For instance, if you, and I mentioned this earlier today, if you had two eyes and a one-eyed man poked out one of your eyes, is it just for you to poke out the one good eye the one-eyed man had? Because then he's full-on blind, and you can still see. It's just you got to, change the way you focus on things. But that man is now completely blind. That's not a just and fair punishment. So that's why we got to be careful about ideas like, what they say, eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Because you got to be careful. Because people, if you have hate and vengeance in your heart, you're going to try to use that word to harm other people instead of use that word to help you make the right decision about how to deal with things. We learned a lot today about the necessity of having judges, and good, honest judges, people who can help make a decision in a very non-biased way. You want to have if you have a judge, you want a judge that's not biased. Someone who's honest, God-fearing, and does not take bribes. And we learned about all that today. Let's see. Cast it from you. For it is profitable for you that if one of your members should perish, but not the whole body should be cast into hell. Think of this as like being an instruction for Israel as a whole. And we talked about this earlier today. Israel is one entity. It's not me. I mean, I'm a part of it, but it's not me. I'm not they say, well, nobody's, some are the hand and some are the foot. Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. Just imagine it like a human body. The human body is billions and billions of cells. Every one of them alive, every one of them full of information, and every one of them doing something all the time for the whole. Now, there are cells that spend their entire life cycle to die. That's what they do. They die to make the whole. Your outer layer of skin is just covered in dead. It's covered in dead cells. You just absolutely bathe in your own dead cells. But they're also keeping you safe at the same time. Even though every one of them had to pay with their life, like the white blood cells. White blood cells go and latch onto something and just don't let it go. They just clump on it and tag it and say, throw us out with it. We're going to give our lives to protect the whole. That's kind of the idea that's, we learned some along those lines today, which is the idea that no part of, the sum is greater than its parts. It would be better that Israel gets used to cutting off pieces or people who are evil because the whole needs to make it through. This is the idea that all of Israel is one big organism. It is the bride of God. It is the bride of God. Now, I've latched on to the idea. There's three words in Hebrew you see translated as spirit. There's ruach, which is breath. There's nefesh, which sometimes is breath or evidenced by breathing. And then there's neshama, which is this greater soul idea, right? So here's my thinking, from my probably messed up Christian perspective. So the ruach is the breath that God blew into Moses' mouth. That's the word of God. That's the ruach hakodesh. That's the Holy Spirit. That is the principles, the guiding essence that's going to lead man in the right direction. The nefesh is the actual physical living life force that you were given that actually lets you breathe and keeps you alive. And the neshama is the thing that you are a part of, the greater whole that lives on beyond your death. Like you die, but Israel continues. You're just one little tiny cell inside that greater organism called Israel. And yes, you will die, but Israel will continue. And you were promised one day that you'll get a resurrection. And that one day there'll be a very big Israel. They're ready to marry in with the Father. All right. So let's continue here. We'll see if we can figure out how we're going to get JR split screen in there. And I still don't know how. Well, there's nothing I can do on my end. I got one. I don't know. Maybe so. I could invite anybody on my entire messenger list into this conversation except you because you've already been invited. Can I uninvite you? Yeah, and it doesn't give me the option to uninvite. It's just a one-way trip. It doesn't give me the option to uninvite you. Oh. All right, well, we'll go over to Matthew 5. This is Matthew 5:26 through 5:30. Verily I say unto you, you shall by no means come out thence till you have paid the utmost farthing. Oh, okay, I started a little late here. All right, this is Matthew 5. Let's Matthew 5. Oh, this is all good here. All right, let's start at 5:20. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you shall in no case enter in the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so what's required for righteousness? Is it just the Torah? Or do you have to know the oral Torah too? Now today we learned about the 70 elders that went up on the mountain. The modern rabbis will tell you those 70 elders were privy to learning things while they were up on that mountain in the presence of God, learning the right way to handle certain jobs. Because there's about 100 times in the Torah that God says, I want it done the way I said, and you don't really know how that is because it doesn't say it anywhere. And the rabbis will say, well, that's why you need the halakha, you need the Mishnah, you need the oral, the Torah Baal Peh, which is the oral Torah. In about 380, that was written down in what's called the Mishnah, or the repetitions. So that was the things that people were repeating, that the rabbis were repeating with their students over and over again. That's why they called the repetitions. And they were finally written down, which for a long time I was like, no, you can't write, don't. And I'll bring up a book I've been reading on. I've been doing post-reading this book, The Life and Times of Jesus the Messiah. And it talks about Haggadah, Halakha, and it talks about the Targums that were written around the time of Christ. These Targums were Aramaic, little scripture books written in Aramaic, which contained the notes of different rabbis on different subjects that were discussed in the synagogue. But it was forbidden for people to have those. You were not supposed to discuss what's said in the synagogue has to stay in the synagogue. In other words, it would be okay. The Greeks have already got a copy of the Septuagint. They know the basics of what the Torah actually says, but they cannot know they cannot know the secret knowledge, right? They can't know what only the rabbis and the students know. So he says here, your righteousness must exceed theirs. Well, there's only one way you're going to get beyond someone who literally spends their entire life practicing righteousness to an extent that's almost insane to see sometimes. You're going to have to know what they know, and then you're going to have to rightly divide what is good and what is not. Because you're going to see that Yeshua is teaching his disciples not just what's plainly in the Torah, and of course that's there, but there's also lots of times they're talking about things that are in the oral Torah. They're talking about things that are in the Mishnah. They're talking about, because you got to remember, they were all in the synagogue together. Yeshua went to the synagogue. When he's 12 years old, he's talking with people at a synagogue, at a temple. He's talking with teachers who were teachers in the synagogue. He's discussing things because they learned, mouth to ear, not just by reading what was there. I mean, certainly everyone did not have a copy of the Torah. I think to have a synagogue, you have to officially have a copy of the Torah in it, but that was a rare and expensive thing. However, people could say the repetitions or the Mishnahs to one another. It didn't cost you a thing. All you had to do was have good memory. You have heard it said before in old time that you shall not kill, and whosoever shall kill will be in danger of judgment. Okay, but I say to you that whosoever is angry, this is his Haggadah. Okay, he's giving you the basic commandment is do not kill. I mean, that's absolute foundational. You may not kill. Now let's take it the next step. He says, well, now that you know not to kill, take it to the next step, which is not only are you not allowed to kill, you don't even need to look You don't even need to speak angrily towards your brother, because then you're killing them with your words. So there's power in your tongue. Don't use it in a way that's going to harm. We learned a lot today about harm. You pay recompense. You know, you might have to pay with your life if you harm somebody. If your animal kills somebody, if your animal kills somebody else's animal, if your animal wounds somebody else's servant, there's money or your life, or you're going to go into slavery. One of these things is going to be paid, when you cause another person harm. So he says, be careful. Don't let this thing cause people harm. But I would say unto you that whosoever is angry, and you got to remember too, there is the concept of tasarot, which is translated in the King James as leprosy. Now, the word in Greek for leprosy is elephantitis. That's the disease called leprosy. And in the Septuagint, tasarot is not translated as elephantitis. Tasarot is a disease of speaking. It's a disease of your mouth. It's what the damage that your mouth causes not only to yourself, but to other people, and even to the physical building in which you're living. Your words have so much power they can even destroy a building that you're in. Okay, that's why isn't it strange that a building can have leprosy? According to what the instructions say. Not that we've got there yet. We will. We'll get that there in Leviticus. All right. So he says, "But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of judgment." All right. So we know that if you are angry with your brother, when it says judgment, it's not talking about any old judge. It's talking about one of 7 judges, a 7-man judge system. Let me see if I can bring it up here. This is the crisis. The crisis. The crisis is, let me look it up here in the Strong's Concordance. Accusation, condemnation. In the Greek writings, a separating, a sundering, a judgment. Oh, that is the judgment, sorry. So if you are angry with your brother without cause, you shall be in danger of judgment. And that is the 7-man judging group that has authority to deal with small matters, because we learned in the previous reading about the setting up of a judicial system of people you can have confidence in who can be good judges, and then above them or even more, the higher judges, and the Sanhedrin being the last of them, the Supreme Court, so to speak. And whosoever shall say to his brother Rakah shall be in danger of the council, and that word council is literally Sanhedrin, and that's saying when you call your brother Rakah, because again, it's very important to be careful about what this thing does. When you're angry with your brother, people know they're going to come to you and say, you don't need to be angry. We need to get that out. Y'all need to resolve whatever this issue is that you have. And and that's exactly what Paul taught his disciples. Paul said, hey, you better figure out how to take care of your problems inside this church, because if you have to take it into a legal setting, whatever that judge says goes. And God forbid you would let one of the people who isn't even a believer decide between the two of you who are supposed to be believers. Same kind of concept was happening in Israelite life. God forbid you actually have to go to a judge to get a problem solved. You should be able to solve the problem. So let's look at this phrase, rakah. If you call somebody empty-headed, senseless, in other words, saying that they're dumb, empty-headed, brainless, a term of reproach used among Jews, because let's face it, the Jews are a smart people, and if one of them calls another one dumb, it's meant to be an insult. It's to say that they're empty or idle or worthless. When you live, also sometimes referred to as vain, which is to have something to be pointless. Something that's vain has no use, it's pointless. Or even to say empty, impoverished, poor, worthless, wicked. These are all kind of synonyms. You got to remember that this is actually an Aramaic term, And words in Aramaic and in Hebrew are based off of verbs. So the words are very action-oriented. So you may have some words that seem like they wouldn't be related that get translated as different types of things into English. But think of it in that sense of just saying something's emptied. It's the kind of thing that has no purpose, has no use. It ain't good for nothing. If you tell, and you got to remember, if you a Hebrew person, if you're a Hebrew man, you go into synagogue and you're up here, telling yourself you're God's chosen people, and then one of the other ones of God's chosen people said, "You are empty, idle, worthless vessel, and God ain't gonna use you." That's a big insult. And if you say that to another Hebrew person, you might even get called up before the Sanhedrin to answer for that, because they're going to correct that, because they got to stop that tsarot, because that's that mouth disease. They got to stop that. That's what is translated as leprosy. They got to stop that mouth disease before it gets out among the people. It starts tearing up homes and tearing up people's lives. So take it to the next step, and he says, now, and here's the big one. If you call your brother a fool, and of course that word is not fool, that word is moros. He said, if you call your brother moros, then you are in danger of, it says hellfire. It's Gehenna pyre. Okay, Gehenna is Gehenam. That is the valley of Hinnom. That is the city outside Jerusalem. There's the valley of Hinnom is where they were sacrificing their children to Molech. So it became a garbage heap, and people would burn their garbage there. Okay, so that's the place where the fire is never quenched and the worm never dies, because there's always a huge pile of trash there, and it's burning and stuff rotting there all the time. That is the place of the where the worm doesn't die and the fire is never quenched. Now, the interesting thing about this word moros is basically it means blockheaded, which is odd because, don't Jews put a block on their head with a tefillin wrap? But that's not what, and it says foolish, but that's not what it means. Let's look at the root of this word. It's the word mysterion. Okay, that's where we get our word mystery from. Okay, mysterion, from a derivative meaning to shut your mouth. Okay, so why would you need to shut your mouth? Because you don't need to tell the secrets to everybody. Okay, this is mystery religion. That's why it's or mysterion religion, right? Mystery religion. What is mysterion? The idea of silence imposed by the initiation into a religious rite or a religious mystery. Okay? Said in 1 Corinthians 13:2 of the secret rites of the Gentiles. Because you remember, if you became like a priest to Isis or whatever, you went through a special ceremony. Okay, that's what we're talking about. But this secret order is not a Gentile secret order. This is, let me see if I can find it. Here it is. In Thayer's Lexicon, definition 2, in rabbinical writings, it denotes the mystic or hidden sense of an Old Testament saying. So, if you, who are an initiate into the mysteries, calls someone else who is not a fool, then you are in danger of the fires of Gehenna, or Gehenna. You need to be thrown out into the garbage pile and burned, okay? Because if you call your brother Israelite, who is not initiated into the mysteries of the Pharisees, basically, a fool, say, you don't understand God because you don't know what the Pharisees teach concerning him. You treat somebody like that, then you're a trash person who should be thrown out and burned. Because the idea of being a servant of God is that you do the opposite of hiding things. What is it? The word apocalypse. When you put an A in front of a word in Greek, it negates it, right? So apocalypse means a revealing. Because apocalypse is to put a lid on, so apocalypse is to take a lid off. So you want to remove the covering. That's what the word, I forgot what the Greek word for truth is, but it is literally removing the cover. Let's see, truth in Greek. There it is. Aletheia. Aletheia. A, the negation of, lethea, which is covering. So, to remove a covering. That's the very definition of truth. So he says you worship God in spirit and in truth. That means you don't hide things from people. You don't live in secret. You don't keep secrets that only your initiated few get to know. You don't walk around hiding your mouth so people can't hear what you keeping people from hearing the instructions. Anyways, let me just move on here. So the concept is, let me jump back to where we were. Fool. Well, if I can get it to show up for me. There we go. That's Matthew 5:22. Shall be in danger of Gehenna fire. Remember, Gehenna, Gehenna. It's not hell. It's not a fire pit with a red-skinned, horned guy with a pitchfork. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about Gehenna. He's talking about the valley of Hinnom where the trash was burned. If you mouth-covering Pharisees, hiding everything from everybody, if you try to live that way, you deserve to be thrown in that fire, because that's not what being an Israelite is about. He says, therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there remember it that your brother has a problem with you. So like here you are coming to make your offering to God. You're trying to come to God with the clean hands and clean heart, trying to make an offering. He said, and you remember that somebody's got a problem with you. Go and find them. So he says, go your way first, be reconciled to your brother. And he says brother. He doesn't say to that stranger. He doesn't say that man you hate, even though, yeah, you probably do hate him. He says, go to your brother. Remember, we learned today. What did we learn today? If you find your brother's animal on the side of the road by the way, you stop, you get that animal up, and you take it back to that man you hate. You see that man stuck on the side of the road, broke down, and his animal's under a burden. You go to him and you help him, and help him get back to where he needs to be. It don't matter that you hate him and you can't stand him, or that he did whatever you think he did to you. You put your pride aside and you do what's right. That's